What is up, everybody? This is Alex from HETV. And I'm feeling invulnerable today, or should I say, Never get tired of that. Never gets old, does it? Never gets old. So since season 4 wrapped up, I've slowly been rewatching the first few seasons with somebody I know, and realized I hadn't seen the first season since it came out in 2021, and since reading the comic books in full. So I was kind of curious how it sat now, how it aged, all this ongoing discussion about animation quality and comparing the production design and certain elements from different seasons and contrasting it. So I got all the episodes in a timeline, and I'm going to babble on, and nerd out about this show that I very much enjoy, and just see where this goes. I wouldn't watch this if you're not up to date on the show. I won't spoil anything past where the show is, but this came out in 2021, so it's not like you haven't had time. So there's your warning. Let's start talking about it now with the first episode. Starting off with episode 1, it's about time. In the full story of Invincible, this first episode remains one of the most important as far as an inciting incident and establishing the basics and giving you a hook to convince you to keep going, because while I enjoy what it's doing in the first episode, it's not really until the very end kind of sequence where it shows its teeth and subverts a little bit of the more generic tropey stuff that it is playful with, but could easily be hand-waved as derivative without what happens at the end. But I'd kind of forgotten about this opening scene with, I'm pretty sure this character is John Hamm for some reason. This has been an ongoing critique with the show, like tiny side characters having cameo roles. Lord knows what he was paid for this. But generally I think the casting is good. And the way it's entangled with the animation discussion can get frustrating, so I don't think it's quite that simple. So most of the episode is kind of establishing, you got the Mauler twins in there, great characters, but it's just kind of establishing that they're a parody of the Justice League or the Avengers or whatever you want to say, with obvious kind of sub-ins. Immortals kind of like Wolverine, Superman. We got a Wonder Woman stand-in, Aquaman stand-in, Batman stand-in, The Flash stand-in, you know, it's kind of the Justice League, huh? Obviously our protagonist is established. He's doing a little poopy and reading Seance Dog. I find him immediately charming, even if typically, like in most origin superhero stories, like them being in high school and like learning their powers, and that side of it is like so familiar and done to death at this point that it takes a little bit for these relationships to get some backbone to them, and it's much more the relationship with his immediate family that is more interesting than his high school drama and the school bully and his girlfriend Amber and that kind of stuff. He's feeling kind of self-conscious that he hasn't got his powers yet, and that's kind of what a big chunk of the episode is building up to. I do like this flashback with Nolan explaining the cherry-picked child version of what the Viltrumites are all about. You gotta do it though, you have the first flight scene and all that kind of stuff. Some nice animation in here, like the smear frames there, that's cool. I also noticed that the score is particularly good in the first season, the way it will emphasize moments with the main theme, the, I guess, Invincible leitmotif. I do actually like the simplicity of the character designs in the show. I know it's like an ongoing war in the Invincible community, that it's Ryan Otley versus Corey Walker's art. Personally, I think they're both great artists with different strengths and weaknesses. In the comics, I generally prefer the Ryan Otley detail, but I think you got to give Corey Walker the credit for a lot of these character designs, and specifically in the show, he was hired to help in that transition to a moving image. I think that makes sense to choose the more simplistic kind of designs. That doesn't mean the animation has to be bad. There's plenty of great animation in the season, but I'll get into more critiques of it later. It's more of just like a whiplash problem when the artist changes at certain points in the story when you're reading it. That's more distracting. But I think that's something that will bug you more or less depending on how many comics you've read, because it happens all the time, like artists changing over. You got your training scenes, bully scene, the very Spider-Man-esque creating your own costume, introducing all these smaller players like Titan. This is actually one of my favorite scenes in the first episode, is this discussion between, I'm just gonna call him the Flash, okay? It's the fucking Flash. The Flash and his Russian, can't remember if they're married or girlfriend or whatever, but I like the dialogue of him explaining that it's like excruciating to sit and have a conversation with somebody, because he's like so used to everything being so quick. Yeah, after he gets his suit and we get our first title card, but I'm not sure if I fully would be convinced to keep going with it if not for what happens after with it. And I do enjoy this kind of formatting the show does. I'm not sure if I've seen a show that's done it before, where it would show the end credits and kind of cap something off, and sometimes have 10-20 minutes more of like story, but use it as a structural thing to kind of shift into something else or move something ahead or whatever. So yeah, all the Justice League are summoned, and yeah, this is one of the most important scenes in like the whole story, like what it sets off, the spiral that it sets off. And it is a sincerely well choreographed, animated, scary sequence The big question mark is just so alluring. I don't know how you wouldn't want to know why this goes down the way it does. It also starts showing off how willing it is to be viciously violent, which is another thing that kind of makes it stand out from a lot of its peers that it's parodying, and how brutal it gets as it goes along definitely gives it an edge. I think the first season's focus is a lot on the general hook of that murder mystery plot elements being the focus, as it kind of shifts more into the deeper themes and character stuff, and the deeper philosophical stuff doesn't rear its head for a while, with a lot of the appeal of this first season being, oh, that's a familiar thing, these are a lot of tropes I recognize from this genre, but kind of condensed and focused and taken to their logical extremes as concepts. Obviously, if superpowers and that kind of thing was a standard normal thing in the world, it would manifest in a ludicrous amount of violence and gore. People of that strength, punching each other, it is going to be bloody. So it's nice to see that. It's interesting that with a bit of distance, seeing how this show and this story has gained popularity and is in so much of meme culture now. Yeah, this is one of the great scenes of the whole story, really. Lots of nice detail and expressions and these close-ups. I also, from an animation standpoint, I actually really like when they use simplified stances and poses like this. I think there's a charm to it, especially when there's a lot of motion going on. I think it works well. Here's a nice example. This is very simple line work, but it expresses the action really well, and the way his mustache moves around, and the impact of everything is really felt, matched with the vocal and sound design. Completely insane the way he does them in. I can't even show how, I'm not going to be able to show some of the gruesome stuff because of YouTube's guidelines, but we're going to do Fish Boy. This little exchange is cool because they're convinced that he's being mind controlled, but they still conclude that it's him or us. I choose us. She gets a serious hit on him too. His eyes about to pop out, but unfortunately it kind of allows him to get this weapon and make fish sticks out of Aquaman. Sorry, dude. Yeah, the impact at every hit in this sequence is very well done. I think as far as a pilot or first episode goes, it's pretty great. I think I'd give that about a 9. Right, second episode, Here Goes Nothing. Cleaning up the Guardians. A lot of the structure of the season is obviously basically a murder mystery framing that is strung along until the last couple of episodes, keeping you guessing. So now it's important for Mark to help out with all the Guardians dead. So he's kind of thrown into the deep end. We got our first Flaxen scene. This was something I remember when I first watched it being a little bit put off by. It was this pretty janky CG to try and show off the scale of this. Honestly, I think a shot like this could be greatly improved if there was just some 2D animation in the foreground, maybe. Because there's this whole trend at the moment I keep getting into my YouTube shorts of people changing the compositing and lighting and highlights to give certain stuff more depth in the show. And some of them look okay, but I don't know. And I've been trying to find the words to communicate why just throwing more animators at it isn't necessarily going to fix this issue that a lot of people seem to have with this show. Animation isn't like a factory assembly line where you yield more output from just throwing more at it. There's this really complex pipeline. There are so many different stages to this as a process. Your animation directors, cleanup artists, key animators, and every single one of these people has a slightly different way of doing things or a slightly different style. And sure, the show is very obsessed with model consistency in a way that maybe goes too far sometimes. There are some shots that look goofy with how rigid they can be with that. But if you did scale that way, then you'd also have to scale things up like supervisors who are going over anything that's off model or off the framework, which would slow everything down even more, make everything more expensive. And obviously someone making a fan edit, which are cool and an artistic expression all on their own, but there's no overhead. There's no one restricting the time you can spend on one of these fan edits, where there's so many things you're not even thinking about that are happening in the background, like storyboarding revisions, script changes, delivery deadlines, contracts you got to fulfill, these legal clearances and standards you have to meet, and it's easy to just put them side by side and be like, well, yeah, this one's obviously better. I wish the whole thing looked like this. And I'm pretty sure the animators have even said that they would love for it to look like this. But there's a structural issue going on there. So something like this is good for a micro level thing. There is an apples to oranges thing that is kind of ignoring the complex system that even allows any of this to be released to begin with, which unfortunately is just boiled down into animation bad. when it's more of a workflow or structural or time issue, if anything. As if getting any 2D animated project off the ground is not hard enough. So when people say it's a voice acting budget thing and resources are being misallocated, I think it's not that simple. I mean, there you go. This does look better. That's exactly what I was just saying. Maybe this is where the depth would come in better if they were slightly more blurred or something, because, yeah, they do look goofy. I do like how throwaway they feel as a concept. It's just like, oh, it's just fodder to kind of get things moving early on in a story, but how important the whole flaxen thing winds up being is very cool. And you just don't understand how much reincorporation it's going to do until you're a few seasons deep, really. Robot gets a lot of character development this season. Probably the most he's had in a single season, which again, especially in retrospect, with reading the whole comic, is very cool, knowing where that goes. We've got Damien Darkblood, the kind of Hellboy parody, got to solve crimes to keep himself out of hell or something. I think that's his story, with him being a vessel to inform a lot of characters, and it's just cool to have a detective procedural kind of element at play. I'm very much a sucker for that kind of storytelling. A lot of stuff with Amber this season, doing the almost obligatory, we're trying to make things work, but I'm a superhero and I've got to keep it a secret, so I keep missing dates and all this kind of stuff. It's kind of like a necessary evil with this setting. It's not my favorite stuff, and they definitely improved her over the comic. She's way more two-dimensional. The whole relationship is a lot more two-dimensional in the book. Lots of cool flying scenes and needle drops, and just kind of finding its feet as personality as a show, as a story. I know some of you are already going to be like, wow, this looks so bad when you're going frame by frame. But, you know, it's obviously not intended to be watched this way. This is one of the issues I have with a lot of online criticism, is like taking a shot or an angle or something that's on screen for half a second that your brain would like never really notice. But, you know, unless it's really egregious, it's not a very holistic way of really talking about the general quality of something. It can get really kind of nitpicky and annoying. We got the team stuff, even Rex getting it on. More flaxen stuff, more funny CGs. A lot of this does seem a lot more polished than some of the sequences in later seasons. It's probably down to pre-production time just being longer for the first season and them kind of having to prove themselves. One of the things that drew me in was this whole comedic self-awareness that it has, with it having these silly jokes, like with Alan being introduced and him admitting that he got Earth mixed up with Urath or something, but also establishing stuff that you don't even realize will be important until later, like how he breathes in space or the rules around that.
You don't.
With how Alan can communicate in space. Cecil's one of the goats. He's maybe in my top 10 favorite characters. I'd have to do like a tier list or something to see who's actually in there, but every time he's on screen, he is doing or saying something interesting or complicated, usually from a top level, broad plus and minuses. You can either save the world or be a good guy kind of mentality they explore as the show goes on. He's like, it's cool how he's willing to be a character with a lot of friction and is a human character that can stand up toe to toe with these superpowered creatures that could eviscerate him instantly. More flaxen stuff, more kind of janky CG. That's cool though, Invincible looks good. This shot's a good example of combining the 2D with the 3D models, with the vehicles being CG, but Mark crashing into them. That's a good look, that's not distracting to me. This is probably the best sequence in the episode, actually, is when Nolan shows up. And this is a scene that is also infiltrated meme culture. You hear this song all the time that they play here. Earth isn't yours to conquer. Feeding back into that central mystery, that central question. Really like the color choice here. He's scary. He's a great villainous force that keeps the story moving and interesting. Like, that looks fantastic. Really like the line work here with the way they've highlighted the shadows. Don't know how I feel about CG Nolan.
You don't.
Guess he's moving so quick. You can only really tell. And it is a cool shot in concept. The way it like turns into this like beam of energy that can eviscerate a whole city. It makes him scarier, raises the stakes, showing what he's actually capable of doing. Yeah, that is a cool scene. Yep, solid app. Probably give that one like an 8.
Don't.
Who You Calling Ugly is next. We got a funeral scene. Rex cheating on Eve. Oh yeah, I've forgotten how good a lot of the animation is in this tryout scene for the new Guardians, because obviously they're all dead and need to be replaced. Yeah! There's some really cool animation in here, particularly in this exchange with Rex and Monster Girl. Yeah, that looks great. The way it accentuates the strength of everything, and I keep using the word impact, but it does feel like there's impact and like consequence for the way people are moving around. Just launching off this. Yeah, it's good stuff. William giving Mark dating advice, establishing this important dynamic between Cecil and Mark, with this earpiece and the way they kind of need each other but also don't really get on and clash a lot. Doc Seismic is a funny recurring villain with his political rants. So there's some nice animation on his hair there and the way they've colored it. This season definitely feels the most polished, especially when you're breaking it down like this. Donald's an underrated character. He's not really explored yet, but he's a consistently fun character to have involved. The Maulers are up there as villains go, with this surprisingly deep kind of philosophical concept at the heart of them, with them always bickering over who's the original and who's the clone. But they've been doing this for so long, they're just clones of the same consciousness, just put in new bodies again and again. That's the only way the dynamic works. Really funny and weird and interesting. All of the best characters and villains especially explore some kind of concept taken to its logical extreme and then put up against our main character to test him. Yeah, the Mauler prison escape is fun, implying that it's Robot breaking them out, asking you why? What's he doing? It's been a while since I've read it, but I don't remember Debbie having quite the same agency she does as far as being suspect of Nolan. But all the stuff with the investigation is kind of what I'm here for. It's advancing the main plot, the main intrigue. Yeah, the growing wedge between these two is consistent, interesting source of drama. I also like the cold effect when they breathe whenever Damien is around. Also really like the end credits sting every time it starts. As a full stop to an episode or a story beat, it's a really nice way of emphasizing it and getting you kind of excited for what's coming next. Another solid episode, that's like an 8 for me. That's a crazy article. Defective demon detective can't save own soul. That is the kind of stuff tabloids will be writing about too, right? That's fine. You got world, US and Canada, UK. What about everyone else? I guess their world. That's neat though, her kind of becoming conspiratorial and following her gut against all of her instincts to back her husband, but something ain't right. More relationship stuff, confrontation between Nolan and Darkblood. That is a crazy frame. Where'd your nose go, dude? This is a fun sequence though. It's the Mauler building his cloning tech and seeing his process of how he does it. Always playing a Run the Jewels song too, which is funny. Robot being all Michael Fassbender from Prometheus with his weird blood-stealing routine. That's bad now. So a lot of dialogue, a lot of just building on this central mystery. The big important concern is getting you to, like Mark, be invested in his relationship with his dad, mum, and girlfriend, and kind of preparing you for how this season's going to end. You can tell how they prioritize the animation budget for action and movement, because the dialogue doesn't really get that love at all. It's usually someone just kind of standing still, maybe a slight shift, but that's when the voice actors kind of have to take over and sell what they're saying and get you to buy into it, which I do, but I wouldn't blame someone for criticizing how kind of simple and flat some of these dialogue exchanges can be. Mark continuously having to come up with excuses as to where he's going, which this episode is to Mars. This is one of the big issues a lot of people seem to have with the show, is when there'll be an episode where something that kind of seems like a B or even C plot sometimes just isn't as exciting or as interesting as the main plot with the Viltrumites and what's going on with Nolan, which is true, but I guess I'm just more primed with when you read it, there will just be an issue here and there that's like, okay, that wasn't like advancing much. Maybe there were a few little character moments or good gags, but the more time you give it, the more payoffs you tend to get, and there are various payoffs to this whole Mars stuff. It's cool to see other parts of the universe that aren't just on Earth. Makes it feel bigger. There's a good gag with that character from the first episode that's thrown into space. So I guess this is the introduction of the Sequids concept and the whole Martian thing. The character drama between these two is really well performed. Oh, it's the dragon guy. That's right. I forgot he was actually established here. There's an organic tension between them that reaches a head shortly. The Sequids, the zombie squids. I'm just not hype on these guys. I like the stuff with Shapesmith, like sneaking back with them, but as a creature or concept, I'm not that into them. The rules are kind of funny though, with the shape-shifting Martians being mostly fine with them because they can't take them over because of their shape-shifting abilities, but obviously that doesn't apply to humans, making them the Flood from Halo, basically. I do like the cut after the conversation with the Martian King. It's pretty funny. Or Emperor, whatever you call him. Yeah, Shapesmith coming back is a better payoff than the Sequid stuff. I don't know, maybe this like psychologically gets to you or something, but I don't really care that much about these like hive mind infection type creatures. So unfortunately for Darkwing, he kind of gets framed by Nolan and sent back to hell. What's going on with the line work there? That's weird. All of the line work on his face is like a different thickness than the rest of it. It kind of looks a bit funky. There you go, it looks fine there. Again, that's one of those things that you're probably not going to notice unless you're going through it, scrolling through the whole thing obsessively like me. Debbie trying to help I'm just going to call him the Flash's partner to get a house together to sell it. Kind of a nice bit of foreshadowing to what's about to come. Right, we're shown Robot's true form. This little guy. Again, not like a crazy episode. Probably the weakest for me in the season. Not bad though, it's just kind of necessary development with the shape of the show. Episode 5, That Actually Hurt. Yeah, this is a funny, weird episode. Getting into these crime gangs that is a recurring thing. This is probably the best one of the crime gang episodes from the 4 seasons so far. That's a funny shot. Machine Head's voice is quite funny, the auto-tuning thing. And it's an intriguing little set of characters. I don't think they need quite the attention they get as the story gets bigger and they keep being returned to. You can just kind of feel repetitive at times. Yeah, every scene with Nolan is what you're here for, really. Trying to figure out his motivations and what is conflicting him and what the hell's going on. Like, is he being controlled? Blah, blah, blah. Poor Elephant. He gets a rough deal of things. Debbie finding Darkwing's journal so she can fill that role as a character and start following the clues that he left. Oh, not these guys. You think they're bad in the show? This guy... Her dad is like so over the top, like disgusting in the comic. It's... it's kind of ridiculous. There is something bittersweet about seeing Mark so kind of peppy, because I guess this is the first episode where they're willing to show him get just utterly decimated, which loads of people get frustrated by, but I like that. I like that he's always getting completely wrecked and has to keep getting back up, even though it sucks. I do like how Robot is entangled with the Maulers. It makes complete sense. Using them to get a clone of himself. Yeah, there's through line with her finding the old suit and taking it to art and stuff. Very cool. So yeah, Machine Head, like, brings in Battle Beast, which is such a funny way of introducing this character. Considering, like, how much he does over the course of the story. And a bunch of these like throwaway henchmen, gooners, do actually get quite good development as it goes on. Yeah, this is a really good action sequence showing how outmatched he is, how inexperienced he is, really. The execution of especially the voice acting of "You guys are fucking dead" as a great moment. You guys are fucking dead! I want to see that phone call between Machine Head and Battle Beast, like how he convinced him, because it's so weird. Yeah, decimating Mark. And then decimating the new Guardians too. I just can't get over like establishing a character like this way. I've never seen anything quite like it before. His cheeky little smile on his close-up is funny. And yeah, I don't think I can show this, but the hit on Mark is brutal. God damn, yeah, just going through this, there's some vicious stuff in here that I wish I could show off, but you gotta watch it yourself. Everyone just gets their asses kicked and he's like, nope, you're not even like worthy of my attention, bye. And just leaves through a portal. What the hell, man? I just remember being so confused by this when I first watched it, like, who is this guy? I thought this was the small-scale, like, turf war, like, Batman crime family thing. What's this Catman all about? All these scenes of the GDA trying to figure out how to damage Viltrumites because they know something is up and they need some kind of plan. Very much enjoyed that side of it. Yeah, that's a really good episode. I think that is one of those kind of 9 out of 10, showing you a bit more of what's unique about this story compared to its contemporaries. Right, You Look Kinda Dead, another smaller scale episode, but that's not to say there's not a bunch going on. Mark healing from his cat fight, going off to see universities with William and Amber. So weird that Sinclair is voiced by Ezra Miller in the first season. I guess this was before everything happened. But another example of one of these, like, who's this random-ass side character who winds up being very important to everything that's going on. A weirdly key player. But this being a kind of smaller scale little adventure and just working on the relationship stuff needed to be done, because after this point it's kind of non-stop trauma for everybody. Yeah, the whole Reanimin thing's a goofy, fucked up body horror angle. There's a lot of body horror throughout the course of the story, actually, and weird, disturbing concepts. I'm glad that William finds out the truth pretty early on. They don't hold that too close to their chest for too long. They're like trying to balance the secret identity. Robot's obsession with Monster Girl is weird and interesting, with it obviously being motivated by his similarity with feeling like he's someone trapped in a body that he's a slave to, in the same way she's kind of forced to get younger every time she transforms. He's always so sly and calculated that he's probably in the top 10 characters of the whole story as well, with where they take him and his weird obsessions, and you can never quite pin down who he's aligned with. So Art tells Debbie that with the damage on the suit, the only way this kind of makes sense is if he attacked first, and is some evidence to what she's been suspecting deep down. I didn't really mention Eve's B-plot that much. She's not given too much to do in this season. She's not that important yet, really. But after she leaves being a superhero and wants to just kind of go around repairing things and being inspired by Amber in the soup kitchen. Oh, nice eyes.
Don't.
So Will's love interest gets kidnapped by Sinclair and turned into a robot man, which is pretty fucked up. The way they're cutting between the various plot lines works really well, with them all having kind of a central hook to them, with whatever the hell Robot's doing. Nolan talking to Art even though he knows Art knows, and all the relationship troubles on a smaller scale with Mark. Oh yeah, and this guy is Justin Roiland, which is another weird inclusion 5 years later. So in the sewers, Sinclair has been like making robot armies. Funny, goofy, comic booky idea. And they're like weirdly strong. And again, I remember when watching this for the first time thinking like, why are they spending an episode on these guys? They're clearly not gonna come back again. This is a one episode type deal, right? And they don't really do that. The reincorporation is just endlessly rewarding. Even though the immediate conflict is kind of lower stakes, I actually like the shape of this episode and where it sits in the season. And all I'm thinking the whole time is just like, dude, I know it's unfair, but this whole situation just doesn't make sense for you. With the episode ending with Debbie confronting Nolan and all kind of kicking off, with the end credit stinger being these kids digging up Immortal because the twins want him as a slave, I guess. That's their payment from Robot for making a clone of him. Yeah, I quite like that episode. I'd probably give that like an 8.
Don't.
It's right before everything kicks off, kind of the calm before the storm, and that kind of says all you need to know about Invincible. If the calm before the storm are zombie robot mad scientists, that's just kind of what this is all about. Right, we need to talk. So they have their argument, the answers aren't good enough, stuff's getting scary. GDA knows it's heating up. So basically the whole season Nolan's been toying with when and how to do this. I missed that scene earlier where he's rehearsing how he's going to tell Mark. It's nice that Amber figured out that he was invincible before he tells her, but I don't know, it's just unfair to both of them to be in a relationship. The robot glitching scene is cool, kind of creepy. All the stuff with Robot and the Maulers is prime. So weird. How's that funny? Burger Rudy. Oh, here it is, the rehearsal scene. Yeah, I was getting ahead of myself a little minute. Yeah, this is great, all the swapping consciousness stuff. I like that they explain that it's not putting him into another body, it's making a copy, and explaining that as a concept to him and him being okay with it. That's a cool shot. Communicates quite a confusing concept in a single image. It is really creepy that he like stole someone else's DNA and made a child clone of them. What a weird idea. Just to appeal to a monster girl who gets younger every time she turns into a monster. What the hell?
Don't.
Obviously their little agreement doesn't really work out with a bit of a robot fight. Right, it gets like so violent now. I don't know how much I can even show, but this is kind of like what it's all been building to. We saw what he did to the Flaxons. We know what he's capable of, but like, what's gonna happen? Taking out Donald? R.I.P. I do like the sequence of them trying everything they can to hold him back or stop him or slow him down. But there's basically nothing they can do. God, this season has like so many memes attached to it now. This image, obviously. Where's Mark? So Rudy introduces himself to the Guardians. And honestly, they kind of move on from this pretty quick. They're weirdly okay with his antics. I don't know if it's just because of this world they're in. They're just used to like insane stuff like this happening. But like Rex as a character doesn't really hold on to it that much. Maybe he'll make a joke here and there, but like I would find that a lot weirder than they do. Even though they do in that moment. Very cool. He's too strong.
Don't.
The futility and hopelessness of this, and the feeling of it is so, like, overwhelming. They can't do shit. The fact Cecil's willing to do this makes him so much cooler as a character, because he is so ridiculously outmatched. Bringing the Reanimen in, just throwing everything they got, ending with this kaiju that they showed off earlier in the show, with Mark and Eve finally being nearby and seeing what's up. You're just kind of waiting for that exchange, what's going to be said. If that wasn't enough going on, the Maulers bringing back Immortal. It's such an exciting way to kind of bring that tension to the max, with them thinking they're going to be able to control him, but oh, this is a cool little character development montage, showing flashes of his past. It's so funny that he was Lincoln. Who, when he comes back, is understandably pissed off and wants to confront Nolan, so there has to be a confrontation now, there's no choice. But unlike last time, there are news helicopters, people are watching, it's not a contained little mystery anymore. What's this guy doing with his lotion? This is a weird shot, because they don't normally draw characters like this. Mark is understandably confused, and as is a trend at this point, people punching through other people and gutting them happens with Nolan punching through Immortal. I'm not sure if I can show it. But you can just have that audio. Maybe enjoy that again. That was a good...
Don't.
Great for him. Gotta give him a quick eye plunge as revenge, giving him those horrifying, bloodshot, villainous expressions. He's like terrifying at the ending of this. We need to talk. What a great place to end it. This is, yeah, and this one doesn't actually have an after credits. Because what is there to say without just continuing? This is the juicy stuff. This is kind of what got you in. I think this is 9 out of 10 episode. And lastly, God, this has gone on so long, where it really come from. I love how it just gets straight into it. Just Immortal's head gooing on the ground. Mark kind of understandably thinks he's being under control, like what the Guardians thought in the first episode, but he makes it clear that it's, nope, it's just me, I got something to tell you, a little secret, a little something. So him returning to give the context, but this time with an adult lens of what Viltrum is really about, how they're conquerors and how he was sent to conquer. And they're a scary colonizer alien race, kind of like the British Empire in ways. There's just nothing but sympathy for Mark, like it's so fucked up. It's like a worst case scenario, like, this is good news. We can do our mission of being villains. The performances here, the speeches that they're like swapping between each other, the whole pet line, so disturbing. I love the way he screeches out that it's insane.
This is insane!
I don't give a shit about Viltrum. God, there's so many like memes and frames from this that are just everywhere now. The brutality of their fight is such an escalation. Like it was brutal earlier. There was violence, but this is like something else. Oh, this stuff with the jets is cool. To mimic a fraction of our power is such a cool line. And the hopelessness of him trying to save people, but he's just so utterly outmatched he can't do anything. It's important you take this in and remember all of this too, because the uphill battle of Nolan's, like, redemption arc, if you want to call it that, is one of the best parts of the story, because how do you grapple with someone who's basically been indoctrinated? The 20 years he spent on Earth are kind of nothing, really, compared to his grander scale of life. He's lived for hundreds of years. This is his little blip. And that's what's kind of cool, that even that little blip has managed to soften him. But still, can you really redeem somebody who did this? How do you pay penance for this? Like, this is insane! Maybe my single favorite moment in the episode, maybe in this season, just that you're not, no. Why are you doing this to him? It's so fucked up. It's so psychologically warped to put him through this, to try and illustrate the ants compared to him. And that's why you shouldn't care for them. Not that that's why you should care for them. And look who's on the train. It's like little kids and just like, ugh, crazy shot.
This is insane!
Don't.
The fact they're willing to put him through this, again, bears its teeth a bit more. So grotesque and violent. I quite like the creative choice of when they're fighting at a great distance, just to turn them into these colored smears. Some of the best animation is in this shot, actually, and which is also a meme. Love the way they draw Nolan and his expressions. Combined with J.K. Simmons' performance, there's a reason it's connected the way it has. It's a really powerful scene. And the whole, what's 20 more years? I'll just make another kid.
What's 17 more years? Make another kid.
It's this side of him that I guess has been him for most of his life. Even with the change he goes through, he's got this centuries worth of alien colonizer brainwashing, putting him into this insane situation with his own child. I'm just going for your heartstrings with the flashback, with that gnarly cut from little baby Mark to this, which I can't show, I don't think. Oh my god. Great face animation going on here. It's so expressive.
Think, Mark, don't.
Just seeing this other side of him and this inner conflict come out in this way. And the why'd you make me do this rant? It gets to like emotions that are more like psychological horror than something that is traditionally more for family or younger audiences. Just won't go there. And largely doesn't feel like it's being edgy for edgy's sake, or honestly the best comparison is The Boys, where a lot of the edgy comedic stuff in The Boys is for a gag or to make a slight towards something more cynical. It just feels more cynical, whereas the way violence is used in the show is usually character-led or expresses a concept that kind of makes sense in the world they're presenting. A Superman-type level of strength, like punching into humans and buildings and whatnot, would cause profound destruction and carnage, and you kind of see it play out, and that's part of what's so fun about it. With the final gut punch, that line, what you have in 500 years. You dead. Such a good line.
I still have you.
Some more, this is like some amazing animation here. It's this face acting. Off he goes with his single tear flying into the camera. What a place to wrap up a season. Like, everything has changed forever. I mentioned in the first episode that was a crucial, one of the most important scenes, but this episode is maybe the most important episode and moment in the story where everything is escalated, and from this point the escalation doesn't really stop and things have a gravitas to them. And I guess with the nature of this story, it gives it, when you translate it into a TV show, the best narrative structure that I don't think it's ever going to be able to do again, because the cat's out of the bag. But instead of like a J.J. Abrams mystery box that when you open the box it's empty, there's more story and character development and arcs to explore and so much more to do, but it just doesn't have that clean structure that the like murder mystery angle has. That's not to say there aren't big moments and big changes in characters that come along the way, but it's why I wouldn't blame anyone for thinking this is the best season of the show, maybe being disappointed by the way other seasons move. What a dour note to end on too, with us finally ending with the White Room stuff. That's a cool recurring location. Oh yeah, the ending point is funny with Alan coming back to warn him about the Viltrumites, which could have avoided the whole way it went down, although it still probably would have been destruction. But on a wider kind of plot note, it's nice to bring him back and remind you that there is some kind of rebellious force at play. So whatever's going on with the Viltrumites isn't completely impossible to do anything about, which is probably what you're thinking at this point, but it leaves with so many open-ended questions that I found too tempting to not be fully invested into what's going on. And they like doing this with their little montage to remind you of all the plot threads that are still in motion, with the last shot being above Earth. Man, I think that is a 10 out of 10 episode. From the action, the performances, everything coming together, so much great animation in there, very effective stuff. And overall, just a very solid season of television. And kind of the most important one to get right as far as establishing things, showing off a consistent level of quality. And while I don't think any of the seasons that follow are as consistent, I do think we reach highs as high as episode 8 at other points. But man, yeah, I really enjoyed watching through it. It's very rewatchable, lots of charm there. I've got my nitpicks here and there, but I just see it as a net positive. The fact that it's like a talking point that people are criticizing animation in like an animated show designed for like adult audiences, and people actually seem to care about the quality of it. It's like, wow, there's a first in the West anyway. So I'm hoping the longer it goes on, the more popular it gets, the more respect the medium can garner. So it's not just places like Japan that can use it as a medium for storytelling. I just think there's endless potential with it. I do find it a bit weird in interviews with Robert Kirkman that seems like he almost chose animation because he had to and not because he wanted to, and that he would prefer it to be like a live action thing if he could, but it would just be too expensive and difficult. Whereas I just think that's a bad way of looking at it as a medium, especially if you're adapting something like a comic book or graphic novel. It's just, why would you not do it animated? I'm so tired of people being dismissive of it as a concept, but I'm a dead horse at this point, and this has gone on way longer than I anticipated, so let me know what you thought, and I'll see you on the next vid. Thanks for watching, bye!